Beverly Hills, summer 2016. The morning sun is baking the palm trees lining Sunset Boulevard, where the air itself smells like old money and expensive perfume. It is quiet, the kind of quiet only $40 million can buy. But inside the iron gates of one particular mansion, that peace is about to be shattered. You hear the heavy thud of tactical boots on polished marble. Federal agents are flooding the hallways. And trust me, they are not here for autographs. They move with a cold, surgical precision, clutching federal warrants like weapons. As they sweep through the house, they walk right past an Oscar sitting on a shelf. The one Leonardo DiCaprio finally won for The Revenant. They don't even blink. Because they aren't here for Leo's talent. They are here for a ghost. Sitting in Leo's private collection is another Oscar. One that once belonged to the legend himself, Marlon Brando. To a fan, it is a piece of cinema history worth $600,000. But to the FBI, it is nothing more than stolen property. There is a heavy, sinking feeling in the room as agents start slapping evidence tags on some of the world's most beautiful things. The team moves methodically through the house, dismantling a life of luxury piece by piece. They stop at a Picasso. Value, $3.2 million. Flashbulbs go off, capturing the genius of the canvas now draped in the shadow of a criminal investigation. Then comes a Basquiat, worth a staggering $9 million. Sculptures, rare photographs, icons of human creativity all flagged as the proceeds of a massive international heist. Total value, over $30 million in stolen goods, all sitting right there in Leo's living room. Imagine being the biggest star on the planet and watching your world being dismantled by men in windbreakers. Imagine the realization hitting you that the gifts surrounding you, the art, the history, the prestige were all bought with the blood, sweat, and tears of people halfway across the world. People who will never see the inside of a Beverly Hills mansion. It is not just about the money. It is about the betrayal of the American dream. Leo stands there, quiet, watching them catalog his life as evidence. Every tag they stick on a painting is a crack in the perfect Hollywood facade. How did this happen? How did an A-list hero become the unintentional face of a multi-billion-dollar fraud? Did he know? Or was he just another trophy for a man who wanted to buy the world? The answers aren't here in the hills. To find them, we have to go back to a party in Las Vegas, where a shadowy figure with an unlimited bank account was just getting started. Stepping away from the neon glow of Beverly Hills, let's pull back the curtain to the year 2001. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, home to the Wharton School of Business. This place is a temple for the world's financial elite. It is where billionaire heirs and math geniuses collide to decide who is going to run the global economy. Among the Maseratis and the tailored designer suits, there was a young Malaysian student named Jho Low. Now, if you saw him back then, you'd never peg him as a global mastermind. He was a round-faced kid with thick glasses and a soft, polite smile. He looked like the guy you would ask for math notes. Not the guy who was about to pull off the heist of the century. But inside that quiet student was a hunger that most people cannot even wrap their heads around. Jho Low understood a brutal truth about Western high society. No one asks who you are or where your money came from. If you act like you already own the place. He started a high-stakes psychological game called borrowed power. Jho did not have billions. Not yet. He started by taking out loans from family and small investors back in Malaysia, promising them massive returns on American investments. But he did not put that money into the stock market. He put it into the nightlife. He would rent out the most exclusive VIP sections of the hottest clubs, ordering tens of thousands of dollars in champagne just to treat people he barely knew. Imagine being a 20-year-old student and seeing this guy drop a year's worth of tuition on a single Saturday night. You do not ask for a bank statement, you just admire him. Everyone at Wharton assumed he came from some ancient, untouchable fortune. His confidence was so thick it blurred the line between reality and the lie. He was not just buying drinks, he was buying access. He was weaving a web, connecting himself to the children of presidents and oil tycoons from the Middle East to Southeast Asia. Behind all the pulsing lights and the noise of those parties, there was a profound emptiness. Jho Low was like a ghost haunting the American dream. A guy standing outside the window looking in, deciding he was going to walk through the front door no matter what the cost. He realized that in this world, trust is a currency much stronger than the dollar. If you can make powerful people believe you are one of them, they will eventually give you the keys to the kingdom. And then, he found his golden ticket. Right there in the halls of Wharton, Jho befriended Reza Aziz, the stepson of the future Prime Minister of Malaysia. That was the moment the math finally added up. He was no longer just a kid playing pretend with borrowed cash. He had found a direct line to a national treasury. Those Wharton parties were just a dress rehearsal for a much bigger stage, where the stakes were the survival of millions of people back home, and the prize was more money than God. From the ivory towers of Philadelphia, our narrative shifts to Kuala Lumpur, the beating heart of a nation hungry for a seat at the global table. It is 2009. Najib Razak has just ascended to the Prime Ministry of Malaysia. He is a man of ambition, a leader who wants to transform his country into a financial superpower. But building an empire requires capital. More than any one nation can just pull out of thin air. And that is where the connection with Reza Aziz changes everything. Jho Low was not just Reza's college buddy anymore. He had transformed into a professional problem solver. He presented himself as a financial wizard with deep-pocketed connections in the Middle East. He knew exactly how to speak the language of power, turning dry spreadsheets into glittering dreams of prosperity. Through Reza, Jho penetrated the inner sanctum of the Prime Minister's family. He did not just win over Najib, he secured the loyalty of the First Lady, Rasma Mansur, a woman whose appetite for the finer things in life was already legendary. Together, they birthed an entity called 1MDB. Officially, it was a state-owned strategic development fund. The pitch to the Malaysian people was beautiful. This fund would build schools, hospitals, and infrastructure that would lift the entire nation into the future. It was a promise of a better life for every citizen, from the bustling streets of the capital to the remote villages. The people believed in it. They saw hope in the sleek logos and the grand announcements. But behind the curtain, the reality was a tragedy. 1MDB was not designed to build a nation. It was designed to be a massive private piggy bank for a few chosen individuals. With the Prime Minister's absolute backing, Jho Low was granted something incredibly dangerous: total, unchecked access to billions of dollars in government. Guaranteed money. No oversight. No real board of directors. No audits. Just Jho Low and a bottomless pit of cash. Think about the betrayal of trust here. Imagine being a hardworking citizen, paying your taxes, believing your government is investing in your children's future, only to have that money funneled into ghost companies in the Cayman Islands. This was not just a financial crime, it was a violation of a national soul. When Najib signed those papers to create 1MDB, he was not just launching a fund, he was handing the keys to the vault to a man who saw an entire country as a resource to be drained. The machine was now in motion, and the first billion was already halfway out the door. Las Vegas, the city of neon lights and hollow dreams. But even by Vegas standards, what happened one night in November 2012 at the Palazzo was a total system shock. This was not just a 31st birthday party. It was a high-decibel declaration of the absolute power of cash. Jho Low, the awkward kid who used to borrow money back at Wharton, was now the center of a galaxy where every A-list star wanted a seat at the table. Look at the guest list on his private red carpet: Leonardo DiCaprio, Bradley Cooper, Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, Jamie Foxx, and Paris Hilton. The icons of global culture, all rubbing shoulders on one dance floor. Then, the peak Vegas moment: Britney Spears literally jumps out of a massive birthday cake. For 5 minutes of singing, she walked away with a 6-figure check. That is more than most American families earn in a decade, gone in the blink of an eye. But that was just the appetizer. Look at the receipts settled in the shadows. $3 million for one night. Over $1 million on vintage champagne alone. Gold-plated bottles of Ace of Spades, worth $10,000 each, were uncorked like tap water. Hundreds of them, sprayed over the crowd in a manic frenzy. And there is Jho Low, a round, sweaty guy in an ill-fitting tuxedo, looking completely out of place next to the supermodels and movie gods. He looks like a gatecrasher, but he is the one with the bottomless wallet. In this world, no one cares who you are. They only care about who is paying for the next round. Stop the music for a second. Look at the truth hidden behind those numbers. Every time a cork popped, every time a star accepted $1 million gift, a light was turned off for someone in Malaysia. That $3 million bonfire in Vegas. That money was supposed to build schools for children who have nothing. It was supposed to buy medical equipment for hospitals in Kuala Lumpur. The contrast is gut-wrenching. While the Hollywood elite toasted a generous young billionaire, millions of workers were sweating to pay off a national debt Jho Low was inflating in real time. He was not just spending money. He was burning the heritage of an entire nation to keep his fantasy alive. This party was the peak of arrogance, where treason was dressed in gold leaf and celebrity laughter. But the madness did not stop in the desert. Because once Jho Low bought Las Vegas, he decided he was going to buy the very soul of Hollywood. Los Angeles, 2012. In the beating heart of the world's movie capital, a newcomer called Red Granite Pictures suddenly starts making waves that no one can ignore. Nobody knew where they came from, but they had the one thing every director in Hollywood craves: an endless supply of liquid cash. Behind this mysterious firm were Reza Aziz and, of course, his shadow, Jho Low. Their first big move: financing The Wolf of Wall Street, a masterpiece directed by the legend Martin Scorsese and starring the one and only Leonardo DiCaprio. Stop for a second and just feel the absolute irony of this situation. Jho Low is using hundreds of millions of dollars in stolen money to fund a movie about Jordan Belfort, a financial predator who bled investors dry to live a life of total debauchery. He is dropping $100 million on a story about fraud while he is actively executing a heist 100 times bigger than anything the real life Jordan Belfort ever dreamed of. This is not a coincidence, it is a sick, twisted joke. Jho Low did not just want to make a movie. He wanted to turn his own criminal life into a symbol of prestige. On the film set, Jho Low was seen as a savior. When major studios passed on the project because it was too expensive and too risky, Jho stepped in with a smile and a bottomless checkbook. He stood next to Martin Scorsese, took selfies with Leo, and basked in the aura of a high-powered producer. He was not just buying their time, he was buying legitimacy. At the film's premiere, Jho Low strutted down the red carpet, bathed in the flashbulbs of 1,000 cameras. He stood there, grinning, looking like a man who had conquered the American dream through sheer talent and grit. But look into the eyes of the Malaysian people watching those glamorous images on their screens. They had no clue that every million-dollar frame of film, every designer suit worn by the actors, was paid for by their stolen future. This was a profound betrayal of culture itself. Cinema is supposed to be a place for truth and beauty, but in Jho Low's hands, it was a sophisticated money laundering machine and the perfect mask. He used art to bleach his crimes, turning dirty money into prestigious Oscar nominations. The movie was a global smash, raking in over $400 million and earning 5 Academy Award nominations. Jho Low had won. He proved that if you have enough cash, you can rewrite history and redefine the truth. But amidst the standing ovations in Hollywood, the first cracks were beginning to show. Because money can buy the silence of stars, but it cannot erase the trail of billions vanishing from a national treasury. And right now, as Jho is celebrating his victory, justice is starting to ask one very simple question: where did the money come from? Imagine you are watching a world-class magic show. The magician shows you an empty hat, snaps his fingers, and a rabbit appears out of thin air. We all know it is an illusion, but we are dazzled by the speed of his hands. Jho Low was that magician, but instead of a rabbit, he used $1 billion of public money. And the empty hats he used are what the financial world calls shell companies. These shell companies sound incredibly professional, with names like International Investment Group or Global Infrastructure Partners. But if you actually went to their registered addresses, you would find no office, no employees, not even a single computer. They are nothing more than a stack of papers sitting in a lawyer's drawer on a remote island. They are created for one purpose only: to make dirty money look clean by passing it through a maze with no exit. Look at the sprint of $1 billion in just 7 days. On Monday, the money leaves the 1MDB account in Malaysia under the guise of an energy investment. By Wednesday, that cash is sitting in the Seychelles, in the account of a company called Abar Investments, PJS Limited. This is the heart of the scam. There is a real, massive company called Abar Investments PJS, but Jho Low created a fake one and simply added the word limited to the end. It is a difference so small that no auditor even blinked, but it gave Jho Low total, private control over every cent. By Thursday, the $1 billion flies to a private bank in Switzerland, where secrecy is the law of the land. On Friday, it zips through Singapore, a global financial hub, before landing in the Cayman Islands by the weekend. In just 1 week, that money traveled through 5 countries, changed shape across dozens of wire transfers, and finally ended up in Jho Low's personal pocket. Stop and think about the sheer speed of this betrayal. While a farmer in rural Malaysia sweats for a lifetime to earn a few dollars, Jho Low needed only a few clicks of a mouse to strip away the future of millions. The numbers on a computer screen might look cold and lifeless, but behind every transfer is a school that was never built, a hospital that ran out of medicine. Jho Low turned the world into a playground of digits, where the complexity of the banking system became the perfect shield for his crimes. He believed he had created an unbreakable matrix, a plan so perfect that even the best detectives would give up. But what the magician forgot is that in the darkness, there are always eyes watching the trail of the money. In the world of the rich and famous, a gift is more than just an object. It is a symbol of status and adoration. But imagine waking up one morning to realize that the diamonds around your neck, or the masterpiece in your living room, were bought with money stripped from the pockets of the poor. This was the legal and moral nightmare that hit Leonardo DiCaprio and supermodel Miranda Kerr when Jho Low's empire began to crumble. These gifts, once signs of friendship and romance, suddenly transformed into toxic assets that threatened to dissolve their hard-earned reputations. Leonardo DiCaprio has always been meticulous about his public image, but Jho Low was a master of the long con. He posed as a philanthropist and an art lover, showering Leo with priceless treasures. When the FBI came calling, Leo didn't hesitate to cooperate. He handed back the $3.2 million Picasso, the $9 million Basquiat, and the legendary Brando Oscar. Feel the weight of that moment for an artist, having to surrender icons of culture because you realize they were funded by a national heist. Leo's silence during this period spoke volumes. It was the shock of a hero realizing he had accidentally become a warehouse for stolen history. But perhaps the story of Miranda Kerr is even more jarring. Jho Low was obsessed with her, spending millions to buy his way into her life. He gifted her an $8 million diamond jewelry set. To any woman, that sounds like a fairy tale. But when the truth about the 1MDB fund broke, those gems began to glow with the cold light of guilt. The most shocking part of this story wasn't the price tag, it was the return. Under the strict instructions of federal agents, Miranda Kerr had to hand over $8 million worth of diamonds in a simple plastic Tupperware container. The image of $8 million sitting in a cheap plastic box is the ultimate insult to Jho Low's vanity. It shows that once you strip away the glamour of the money, all that is left is something hollow and ugly. These gifts didn't buy happiness. They bought long interrogations and public shame. While the stars were scrubbing their names clean, the people of Malaysia looked at those plastic boxes with a deep sense of betrayal. Every diamond in that container could have been a meal, a book, or a life-saving medicine for someone back home. The cost of these gifts has never been higher, because they were paid for with the soul of a nation and the broken trust of millions who believed in a fair world. Away from the blinding lights of Hollywood and the roaring casinos of Vegas, we find ourselves in a quiet, cramped apartment in foggy London. There is no vintage champagne here, no red carpets, just a woman sitting behind a laptop with a will of iron. This is Claire Rucastle Brown, an investigative journalist whose only weapon is the truth. While the rest of the world was falling in love with Jho Low's multi-million-dollar movies, Claire began to spot the cracks in the masterpiece. She started asking the questions nobody else dared to ask, and almost instantly, she realized she was staring into the eyes of a monster with tentacles that reached across the globe. Taking on the Malaysian government back then was not a game for the faint of heart. When Claire's first reports on the Sarawak report were published, the entire power structure in Kuala Lumpur began to shake. The government of Prime Minister Najib Razak didn't just deny the claims. They launched a brutal campaign of intimidation. Claire was labeled a terrorist. An international arrest warrant was issued in her name, and she was placed under heavy surveillance right in the heart of London. Shadowy figures appeared outside her door. Threatening phone calls came in the middle of the night, and friends turned their backs on her. This is the terrifying cost of speaking truth to power in a world lubricated by dirty cash. She wasn't just defending a story. She was defending the soul of a nation. But Claire wasn't fighting this war alone. On a tropical island in Thailand, a man named Xavier Justo, a former employee of a company linked to 1MDB, held the final key. He leaked thousands of internal emails and documents, exposing exactly how $1 billion traveled through 5 countries in just 7 days like a dark piece of magic. Xavier paid for that truth with months of his life in a harsh Thai prison, pressured to confess to crimes he never committed. Feel the cold fear of a man abandoned behind stone walls, simply because he refused to stay silent in the face of monumental injustice. The connection between Claire in London and the data from Xavier created a digital storm that could not be stopped. The truth began to seep across borders, cutting through the tightest bank secrecy laws in Switzerland and Singapore. The empathy we feel now isn't just for the whistleblowers, but for the millions of Malaysians who were beginning to realize just how deeply they had been betrayed. Truth is a blinding, painful light. It exposed the rot of a government that placed personal greed above national destiny. The struggle of Claire and Xavier proves that no matter how many billions you have to buy silence, you can never buy the conscience of those who believe in justice. The sirens have started to wail, and this time, no party in Vegas or movie in Hollywood can drown out the voice of the truth coming home to roost. May 2018, the entire nation of Malaysia held its breath in a sleepless night. On the fingers of millions, the blue ink of the election ballots was more than just a vote. It was a declaration of war against corruption. For the first time in 60 years, the ruling regime was toppled. When the results flashed across the screens, the roar that went up wasn't just about politics. It was about the hope that the shadow of 1MDB would finally be dragged into the light. The following dawn wasn't just a new day. It was the start of a historical purge that no Hollywood script could ever dream of. Just days after the election, a surreal scene unfolded at the luxury apartments linked to former Prime Minister Najib Razak. Imagine a convoy of police cars cutting through the night, agents entering spaces that were once untouchable. What they found wasn't just financial evidence. It was a mountain of vanity. Police spent days hauling out hundreds of signature orange boxes from the Hermes brand. 284 luxury handbags, including some of the rarest Birkins in existence, were stacked like brick walls. Each bag costs a lifetime of labor for an average citizen, now scattered across the floor like cheap evidence. But the madness didn't stop with designer bags. Agents discovered 72 suitcases stuffed with cash in multiple currencies. There was so much money that the police had to bring in dozens of counting machines that ran for 3 days straight, with some even burning out from the sheer volume. The total value of the seized assets reached nearly $300 million. Feel the sting of betrayal felt by the Malaysian people watching these images. While they scraped together pennies for their children's education, at the very center of power, their money was piled up in suitcases like the waste of a decadent life. The image of Najib Razak, the man who once stood at the pinnacle of power, now bowing his head in the prisoner's dock, is a brutal reminder that no one stays above the law forever. Those Hermes bags and suitcases of cash were the final pieces of a puzzle of betrayal. It was the end of the fever dream Jho Low had painted. An empire built on deception and the lifeblood of a nation finally collapsed under its own weight. But amidst the ruins, a bitter truth emerged. While his accomplices were being marched off to prison, the real puppet master with the mysterious smile was still out there, somewhere beyond the horizon. While the designer bags were being tagged, and politicians were finally facing the cold reality of a prison cell, the mastermind behind the entire spectacle remains a ghost. Jho Low is now at the top of the Interpol Red Notice list, a digital phantom in our modern world. Theories place him in protected enclaves in China or Macau, shielded by shadowy interests that even the FBI struggles to penetrate. There are whispers of multiple plastic surgeries, a brand new face for a man whose old soul was consumed by greed long ago. The round-faced kid from Wharton is likely sitting on yet another luxury yacht, sipping vintage wine, watching the world chase a shadow that no longer exists. But this story is about more than just one fugitive. It is a massive scar on the face of the global financial system. We have to ask ourselves, how did one man steal $4.5 billion over 6 years without being stopped? The answer is found in the silence of complicity. From the powerhouses of Wall Street to the law firms of London and the private vaults of Zurich, everyone looked the other way as long as the fees kept coming. Jho Low didn't just defraud a country. He proved that with enough cash, you can blind the watchdogs and turn the gatekeepers into your personal servants. The deepest tragedy isn't found in the missing billions, but in the total betrayal of human trust. For the people of Malaysia, $1 billion isn't just a digit on a screen, it's food, it's medicine, and it's the future of their children. The 1MDB scandal is a brutal reminder that greed has no ceiling, and that the loopholes in our world will always be exploited by men like Jho Low. We live in a world where excess is used to mask rot, and where million-dollar gifts can carry the crushing weight of a nation's heritage. Our journey through this heist ends here, but the lessons it leaves behind will echo for decades. If this story moved you, please hit the like button and leave a comment with your thoughts on where Jho Low might be hiding. Be sure to subscribe to the Sins and Lessons channel so we can continue to peel back the layers of the world's most complex crimes together. Your support is what drives us to keep seeking the truth behind the lies. Thank you for joining Sins and Lessons on this episode. We will see you in the next chapter, where the darkest secrets are still waiting to be told.